Do you consider yourself an extremist or a reasonable person?
Reasonable person.
Reasonable person.
I'd say reasonable.
Hey, Matt Edwards here with Citizens Alliance of Idaho. I'm in downtown Coeur d'Alene on a beautiful, gorgeous day looking for reasonable people to ask them reasonable questions. Is it okay to prevent another person from speaking if you disagree with them?
No.
No, just based on opinion. No.
No, I'd say everybody has a right to speak their mind.
I may not like it, but they can say it.
Is that opinion harmful to others? That's where you have to draw the line. If that opinion is hate speech, if that opinion is oppressive.
So if a politician voted for a bill that protected the speech of people who you may disagree with, would they be an extremist or would that be reasonable?
No, that's reasonable.
Yeah, that would be reasonable. Yes.
Well, I mean, within their construct of the law, that would be reasonable.
It depends on the situation.
Depends on the situation, but reasonable.
How are they going to try to protect people? Because in many cases, when you're attempting to protect people, you know that you're going to be placing restrictions on other people to keep them from silencing that person. Generally speaking, I would say it's not extremist. It would be very reasonable to try to protect free speech.
Absolutely extremist. You're protecting a certain rhetoric. And when you protect a certain rhetoric and give that immunity, that gives it room to breed dissonance between other people. And that's wrong. That's extremist. If we are one people, we should be able to coexist properly without the breeding of hate and dissonance between each other.
Do you believe citizens should be treated fairly under the law before their rights are taken away?
Yes.
Yes.
I would say, yeah, that's pretty reasonable.
Very reasonable, absolutely so.
Absolutely. All citizens.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Of course. I mean, that who wouldn't say yes?
If a politician voted for a bill to make sure that citizens were treated fairly under the law before their rights were ever taken away, would that be considered extreme or reasonable?
No, that wouldn't be considered extreme at all. It's very reasonable.
Oh, I would say reasonable.
I'd say that seems pretty reasonable. I have to read the text, but sure, that sounds pretty reasonable.
Reasonable and constitutionally correct.
We already are, in my opinion, unreasonable. Like, we give up already some of our rights, like under the color of law, not actual law. So we're already in this situation, and it's unreasonable to me.
Well, unfortunately, we have a constitution that doesn't seem to be working. So I would say reasonable.
I think you're going to like this question. Do you believe that the federal government should have more power over what happens in Idaho?
No, they shouldn't have any power over what happens in Idaho.
No.
No.
They should definitely have no power. The state of Idaho should be running how things happen here in the state of Idaho. I believe there's a purpose that the federal government should be serving. It should be very small compared to what it is today.
So if a lawmaker voted for a bill that limited the power of the federal government over a state sovereignty, would that be considered extreme or reasonable?
Seems reasonable to me.
Reasonable.
That would be considered very reasonable to me.
They are perfectly reasonable. They're not extremists. They may be viewed as being a bit of a maverick because we live in a world that doesn't really like people who are that brave, but they would be doing the right thing. That's perfectly reasonable.
Very good. Thank you very much.